to the Wednesday afternoon meeting. First thing I see on the agenda is a bid opening for the Toutle wastewater treatment plant. So I'll turn it over to the clerk and she will do that.
We are having a bid opening for the Toutle wastewater treatment plant improvements. Looks like we have 8 bids. First bid. This bid is from Lee Contractors LLC.
One more time.
Lee Contractors LLC. Total cost to Cowlitz County is $2,111,113.86. Next bid. This bid is from Advanced Excavating Specialists LLC. Total cost to Cowlitz County is $1,715,748.24.
One more time, please.
$1,715,748.24. Next bid. This bid is from DeWitt Construction Incorporated. Total cost to Cowlitz County is $1,939,650.08.
One more time, please.
$1,939,650.08. Next bid. This bid is from Roglins Inc.
You spell that?
ROGNLINS. Total cost to Cowlitz County is $1,567,438.88.
One more time.
$1,567,438.88. Next bid. This bid is from Western United Civil Group, LLC. Total cost to Cowlitz County is $1,679,592.27. Next bid. The company is Tapania Inc. Tapana. Total cost to Cowlitz County is $1,492,328.90. Next bid. This bid's from Stellar J Corporation. Total cost to Cowlitz County is $2,035,830.48. Last bid. This bid is from James W. Fowler Company. Total cost to Cowlitz County is $1,565,121.17. And that's the end of the bid opening.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move on with our agenda. I have Public Works.
Good afternoon, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. Just kind of wanted to give you an update on the International Way Sewer Emergency Repair Project. As I said, that was completed within the first week of receipt of notification. We have received all of their invoices and then backup, and kind of wanted to give you, we're verifying all the numbers, and we're going to come in about $52,600. So we're going to verify those last couple of numbers, markups, and we should finalize that price. So we're very happy that that's where we came in.
Because our initial estimate was right around 100,000, wasn't it?
Yes, it was because we didn't know what we were going to get into,
You're gonna run into.
unfortunately.
Right.
So that is the good news. So we are working, the construction manager is working on finalizing the numbers, and we should get that this week and be able to get that paid out and move forward. And I apologize again for my music yesterday. I didn't even hear it. That's, I just put it on to drown out the barking dogs, and so.
On that project, Susan, remind me, are we going after the company that was doing the drilling for any of that?
So we have Doug Jensen tomorrow. And I'm going to talk to him about that, because of the locating, what our responsibility was and if we can recoup any of our costs. So.
That was our only, aside from the bid opening, Public Works items. Did you guys have any other items for Public Works before we move on to facilities? Okay. Savannah Clement, Public Services. For facilities items today, I wanted to discuss with the board a grant opportunity that we actually applied for last week. Normally, I would come to the board ahead of time and kind of get, I guess, a head nod, so to speak, before we go seeking out grants. This grant was a very short turnaround. I think we had a week and a half notice, and there was no match. So we didn't have an obligation from the county to spend money in order to spend grant funds. So the grant was for actually LED lighting upgrades at the Hall of Justice. And I worked with Millig on this grant to get it in last Thursday by 3 p.m. And so we're requesting full funding for LED light replacements for the essentially all interior spaces of that building. We should know in about a month or near the end of this month on whether or not we receive that grant. And the grant is from the Department of Commerce. We're thinking it'll be about $300,000 in our estimate with our application. So just want to give notification on that. So hopefully I'll be back at the end of the month telling you we got it. But the next grant that I have, oh, sure.
Question on
sure.
that, Savannah. And I think Department of Commerce is pretty good about this, unlike some other departments. Could you tell, is there any additional things tied to that they want us to do, or?
No, there wasn't any additional items. I mean, the Hall of Justice kind of, well, it's a unicorn. We know that. It's different. We haven't received really any energy funds from the Department of Commerce to upgrade the building to make it more energy efficient. So we kind of get kudos for that because we're trying to make improvements. They also know we're working on our energy audit with Millig, so that also kind of gives us some points. But yeah, no, I don't know of any other, I mean, we don't have to like stay in the building for, 100 more years or anything like that where
Other stipulations
that I'm
or
aware
something?
of. Of course, once we get the preliminary, when we get the grant, all of that kind of information will of course be available and we'll be able to bring it back to the board. The application itself doesn't tie us to the grant funding obligations, but as far as I know, there weren't any other strings attached.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The second grant opportunity is also from the Department of Commerce, and I have brought this to the board. We started working on it late last summer. We had a lot of notice on this one. There's a Clean Buildings Initiative coming out. Well, it's not an initiative. I'd probably call it a mandate. That by 2027, all certain tiered buildings, so there's tier 1 and tier 2, and those are defined by square footage. The Hall of Justice is one of the higher square footage buildings that is defined under this mandate that we have to comply with certain standards. One of those standards is conducting an energy audit, which we're already doing. So that was great for us. We got in early. We got into the early incentive because we got in early. And so we're also working on that grant. We've already done an inventory of square footage. We have already almost completed our energy audit. And so once we do, we'll be applying for those funds as well. And the early initiative allows for, I think, instead of like 80 cents per square foot, I think it jumps it up to like $1.20 a square foot. So we would be able to at least capture some of those costs from that IGA that Millig's working on, that investment grade audit, which has the energy audit component. So not only would we comply with that, but we'd also, if awarded, get grant funding to support it. So that's the other one, but you'll hear about it probably as it comes closer to the deadline. I'll be able to get it in front of the board and give a little bit more information. So I have that. Any questions on that one?
Did you say, do we know how much that grant's for that we're applying for?
So it's based on, for the energy audit one, it's based off of square footage. I don't have the square footage of the Hall of Justice off the top of my head. If Sean was here, I'd bug him. But so it would be, if we were seeking the early initiative, which we are, it's $1.20 per square foot, but I can find that out and get you actual numbers and not guesses. So I can find out for you.
Yeah. It's a
Okay.
pretty large number, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what we were thinking is it would pay for half or 3/4 of that investment grade audit if we were to get it. So that would be
That's a
fantastic.
significant chunk then.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the hope. Any more questions on that? Okay. I'm speeding through this. So I have in front of me a proposal from AEDA, and they are our on-call architect company that we have a contract with. So I'll just pass this out to the board. Oh, thank you. So this proposal is to essentially allow us construction plans, and conceptual design to move forward in constructing offices in the second floor annex for OPD. I've worked with them for a couple months on this. We've gone back and forth a little bit on the cost. I eliminated some of the items that I didn't feel that were necessary because they had some project management, permit submittals. We do that all in-house, so I had them take that off. But a lot of it's going to be the architectural design and the mechanical engineering with HVAC. We have to essentially construct 12 offices in that old cog space, which is very, very expensive. So we want to make sure our plans are correct and we have a good document moving forward to go solicit low bids on that. So this is the first start of that. Once we get this proposal approved, they'll start working on plans so we can start getting this out to bid and ready to go. I don't want to keep talking just to talk, sorry, but this will be the largest piece of this whole move-in. You know, we had talked to the board last time about kind of as soon as availability is ready to go in the annex, we'll be moving folks in from OPD, starting with the Compass, Noxious Weeds, and the old facilities maintenance office. This, where the cog was on that second floor, it is the most work we'll have on this whole project. So hence the price tag of approximately $62,000 just for all the plans. It is a lot of offices, which all need their own electricity, plugins, network, and HVAC. So.
It does good work for us.
Yeah, I've been happy in working with them. They've been very flexible when I kind of push back on, not this isn't going to fly, or I won't bring this forward because of the price or because of whatever. And they've been really good about working with me and trying to get some of these costs down, shave off some of the subs on here and really get to what we need. So I've been pretty happy with working with them.
I would say you had the same experience when we were working with them on the
Juvenile.
juvenile facility. They're very, want to make sure that they get what we're asking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, I think that's the only project that we've gone forward with as the county. I have quite a few proposals, but you know, with the Hall of Justice feasibility, that's a big one. Annex is one, and then I also have the Parks Legacy that I'm still working back and forth on with them. So I haven't actually given them the green light on any of these proposals yet, but it is what it is, and they've been very good about it. So.
Yeah.
So.
I don't have any problem with it.
I don't see.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just confirm with them that this proposal is good to go and we'll start that. So the next time it'll probably be in front of the board will be for the bidding, going out to bid and awarding bids, hopefully sooner than later. So.
But you did mention we are able to move some people back in to start.
Correct. So as soon as, remediation is complete, we are working on the reconstruction piece of it. But right now we do have the facilities maintenance office that we're hoping to get folks in. We'll get some administrative staff in there. And then the next office, whichever one gets the construction done first, we'll be moving them in there. We've been doing a lot of walks with IT and our electrical contractor core on dropping networks. So we're ready to go as soon as this construction's done.
Okay.
I also hope to have for the board kind of just a project budget update. When we were directed to do this, there wasn't really a budget in place because there were a lot of unknowns with the annex building and what the needs were. And then we had this large accident. So we're kind of starting new a little bit in project because we won't have to do some of that work that we either had already done in-house or we hadn't planned to do it because of the 2 water incidents. So I hope to have a budget too in front of the board so you guys have an understanding of kind of where we're at cost-wise. Any more questions on annex? Okay. All right, so I did have the CIP draft policy on here. I just wanted to make sure that the board had some time to review those documents. I sent them electronically. I understand Commissioner Farrell's not here. So I just didn't know kind of what, if you guys had additional questions that I could answer or discussion.
I think the highlighted version helped me out a lot.
Okay.
It looks to me like it's a lot of clean up, and you're kind of just putting in place what we're actually doing versus what was in that thing from way back whenever.
Exactly. We did add a few things. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Okay.
I was just agreeing with him.
Okay. You know, like I said, some of the notable ones I think will be pretty impactful. We're kind of adding in some of those forms, and we were seeing a lot of, we're getting kind of caught in the middle of space, and what is our role as facilities versus a committee versus the board and their authority. So anyway, I think it'll be very helpful moving forward.
Have departments seen it? Do they think it might be an easier process for them?
So the departments, most of the departments are represented on the committee. I mean,
Okay.
every building and then some. So we were having a lot of, like we have IT there, we had building and planning there. We had a lot of divisions that didn't necessarily like represent a campus location, but they were always on the committee. And so we had a lot of input. I mean, more than just the voting members. So we kind of added some of those in there because we felt like it was important to have them reflected, like IT, purchasing, they should be involved. And so we did have a lot of feedback, but next steps, if the board is okay with it, I will send it to electeds and department heads to review and provide feedback and go from there.
But that's good. All the stakeholders had a say in
Yes,
what you put
yes.
together.
Yep.
Okay.
We worked on it for quite a while back and forth, so I think they'll probably be thankful that we can move on from that. And then the only other miscellaneous item I had was just an update on the noxious weeds location. Commissioner Rader had talked about that last week. I'd seen Jason that afternoon, but I also called Jennifer just to touch base on where she was at and what her needs are. And it sounds like for the most part, with the exception of some old chairs that need to be taken to the dump, which our maintenance team can do, they're pretty well moved in. They're still searching for a Connex, which was approved in their budget last year, and for some of their outside stuff. And we're working on just some more storage for them. But other than that, they're pretty well moved in, and she was good, and we had a good discussion. So I think we're almost squared away there.
Thank you for that.
Yep. That's all I have. Unless the board has-
Just as a follow-up,
Yeah.
Savannah, and this may be a question for Mike, but with the citizen that we had that called us with the transients on their property up Lewis River,
Oh,
had
okay.
them camping out and
Mm-hmm.
garbage and that kind of stuff. Do you know anything about that and where we're at with it?
I don't know enough to have a really good answer for you. I know enough to be a little dangerous, which is I overheard in another meeting that we were kind of maybe working with the sheriff's office on that. There was some other things going on that have to do with the sheriff's office. So
Okay.
he'd probably have a better idea.
Okay, I'll follow up with Brad. Thanks.
Yep.
That spurred me. Coming in, I can see DNR got everybody moved off over there. I don't know where they've gone, but
And yes, that was, I think that was our sheriff's office. I think that was primarily Sheriff Thurman really.
move that off.
And all we did was, I know Deputy Harris that works with Public Works and the sheriff. He worked with the DNR rep locally and he brought him garbage bags and to help that move along.
Yeah, from just looking, of course, I'm looking across the river. It looks like it's cleaned up pretty
Good.
well, except for the one boat that's
Still
underwater.
there.
But I don't
Oh.
know that they brought it in.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but yeah, so they were really awesome at getting that moving. All right, we're gearing up for a busy year. We have a lot of construction, a lot of projects and facilities, so it'll be exciting. Stuff's happening.
It is.
All right,
Anything else?
I'm good. Thank you, ladies.
thank you.
We have Mount St. Helens Institute at 2:30. With these. Are you gentlemen here for Mount St. Helens or did you? Oh, okay. That's good. We'll probably go into recess until 2:30 till Mount St. Helens gets here or whenever they show up. Okay. All right. Thank you. He's kind of funny. He'll come up, the last question is he'll go, you know.
You know, I was trying to explain. What's his last name? What is his last name? Kaiser. I was trying to explain to Susan who it was, because we know him, and I couldn't remember his name.
Years ago, we ran for
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank
I'm going to talk about, we're starting to get requests for proclamations, but the argument, one of the first arguments they get, not parts. You can not use the title, but they're parts of some of it. Okay, we're out of recess at 2:30. We have been visiting with us today is Mount St. Helens Institute. And I think we have a slideshow or whatever you want to do. We'll just turn it over. Okay. I think I've had the chance to visit twice up there. Commissioner Raver, have you been, go up there? Good, good, good. There you go. Okay.
Thank you all. Thanks for having us here today. I'm with the Mount St. Helens Institute. My name is Elisa Hoyt, and I am a co-executive director of the Mount St. Helens Institute. So as I mentioned, at the end of today's presentation, I want to hear your Mount St. Helens story. Most people who live in this area have some sort of story. So as you see the pictures of Mount St. Helens, maybe it'll remind you of a hike, maybe it'll remind you of the eruption. But we love collecting people's stories and hearing how people are connected to this amazing resource in our area. So again, my name is Elisa Hoyt. I currently live in Battleground. I've been with the Mount St. Helens Institute since July of 2023. As a staff member, I was a volunteer before that. I have 5 kids. I grew up in Washington State, kind of traveled around the country a little bit with work and school, but have been back in Washington State since 2011. So I've been back in the area for a long time. Please ask questions as we go. I have quite a few slides today to talk about who we are and what we're doing and how we're connected with Cowlitz County. But please feel free to ask questions. I'd really rather have this be a dialogue than having me just speak at you or to you. So again, please ask questions. Next slide, please. So mission of the Mount St. Helens Institute, we're really focused on science, education, and exploration of volcanic landscapes, and we use Mount St. Helens as that living laboratory to be able to do that. We talk with all the kids that come up for outdoor school, which we'll talk about later, talk with them about really seeing Mount St. Helens. So focused on that science education and then connecting to a landscape through exploration of that landscape. Next, please. Just a short history of Mount St. Helens Institute. As you know, the Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980, was that big giant eruption. The Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument was formed in 1982, just 2 years later. The Mount St. Helens Institute was formed about 10 years after that, really to focus on science education. There was a lot of scientific research going on at Mount St. Helens at that time, and we were really focused on how do we distribute that information to the public? How do we help people understand this? So as you can see, we have our spaghetti monster was our first logo. We've evolved since then along with our logo. Right now, a big focus of ours is on youth education and community education around Mount St. Helens. And again, just connecting people to a landscape and helping them understand the ecology there. Next slide, please. Some people, when they think of the Mount St. Helens Institute, they're like, oh, you're the part of the Forest Service. We work very, very closely with the Forest Service. We run our programs at the National Monument. On occasion, we've shared positions with the Forest Service. They've worked for the Forest Service part-time. They work for us part-time, but we are a nonprofit organization that is separate from the Forest Service. So we receive federal funding through contracts and agreements, but we are not part of the federal government. Partnerships are really important to us as an organization. And so we also work really closely with Washington State Parks. We work with the U.S. Geologic Survey. We also work with Washington Trails Association, and then Discover Your Northwest is kind of the gift shop arm of the Forest Service in the Pacific Northwest. We also have a good partnership with them. So partnership really helps us get a lot done on a nonprofit budget. Next, please. So we're going to take a little bit of a field trip, a virtual tour, shall we say, as we zoom in toward Mount St. Helens. So we've got the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, which is in Southwest Washington. Within the Gifford-Pinchot, there are 3 ranger districts, the Mount Adams, Cowlitz Valley, and Mount St. Helens Ranger District. Within that Mount St. Helens Ranger District is the Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument, which is where the Mount St. Helens Institute does most of our programs and our work. But like I said, we do partner with the state parks, and so we do offer some programs there in Castle Rock as well. Next slide.
the previous one to this one, you listed I saw the Cowlitz tribe.
Yes.
What do you do with them, or what's your agreement with them, or how do you
Yeah,
work
so
with
the
them?
Cowlitz tribe has been an incredible partner for us. They gave us, at that time, it was the largest grant that they'd ever given to a nonprofit organization. It was a 3-year, $900,000 grant that we received in 2023. So next year is the third year of that funding. No, this year is the third year of that funding. We also do a lot with their programs. We offer 8 programs just specifically for the Cowlitz tribe. We bring them up to Mount St. Helens, and we work with both their youth program and their garden program to provide educational programming for members of the Cowlitz tribes. We had everything from mushroom foraging to dyeing with leaves and berries. We really focus on a lot of their traditions, and so it's a really reciprocal way for us to learn and be able to pass that information along to the students that come up that aren't part of the tribe. But also we have the opportunity to help them with some of that pedagogy and just the instructional, the ways that we teach that really help it make it impactful for the folks that come up.
Cool, okay.
So continuing on our virtual tour, again, we're kind of zoomed in on the volcanic monument. Like I said, it was formed in 1982. There were discussions at that time around what size is the monument going to be? Does it include the High Lakes area? Does it not include the High Lakes area? There was a lot of discussion and compromise that was made, and it landed on 110,000 acres. The reason I mentioned the High Lakes area is because that's been in our conversations with a lot of Cowlitz County residents. It's kind of a sore point for folks. They're like, this was our backyard, this was our playground, now it's privately owned, it's not part of the monument, we don't have access to it anymore. So it's something as an institute that I've thought a lot about, just in terms of how do we increase access? How do we take what the monument is now, not having control over what the size of the monument is? How can we connect with Cowlitz County folks and really help bring people back to this area that they had a lot of access to before it became a monument, but it's been closed off for a long time. In a lot of ways. When the monument was created, a lot of that access control was because of these reasons that the monument was created. So to protect those features that were created by the eruption, to protect public health and safety. Again, in 1982, there was still a lot of uncertainty around what was happening next to this really barren landscape.
Well, I remember headlines, when that happened, it'll be 100 years, but
Right.
I don't think they understand how Mother Nature works. She's on her own, different timeline.
Definitely on her own timeline,
Yeah.
for sure. And that's one of the things that we love to tell the story of, is this resilience and recover of this
Yeah.
landscape that was just,
It's actually pretty incredible story when you think about it, that Mother Nature can recover like that.
yeah.
Yeah. The building and all that stuff, how big a piece is that?
Yeah, so the campus where we operate our programs is on about 30 acres.
About 30 acres.
Yep.
You said that it's, the access has been restricted. Is that due to private timber companies that have restricted access from different areas to the monument?
Yeah, Weyerhaeuser owns a lot of the land that's up kind of in those hills, like Elk Rock, for example, I believe is on Weyerhaeuser land. I believe it's Mount St. Helens Timber Company. So there's a separate timber company that owns a lot of the land that's right abutting the monument.
Mhm.
There was a private sale of some of that timber land maybe 20 years ago. So there are some privately owned parcels up in the High Lakes area. But again, it's not federal land, so you do have to be a landowner to be able to have access up there.
Yeah. And the county used to own, and I don't know what they call it, the one down below.
At Hofstad Hills, yes.
Yeah, Hofstad for a while, and then we ended up selling it. There's some in the county who would say we should have never sold it, but that's.
So again, we work in the monument. It was created for these reasons. It was created by an act of Congress, which is kind of unique for a monument. A lot of them are by executive order. This one was an act of Congress. And so to make any changes to the monument or that landscape or the land there, it takes another act of Congress to make any modifications on that. Next slide, please. Again, zooming in a little bit farther from the monument, you can see that there's a few things circled in red. This is where we offer most of our programs. So our headquarters is down at the Forest Service office in Amboy. We don't run programs out of there, but we have a small office there. And we do run quite a few programs on the south side of the monument. We do educational tours at ape caves with students. We also do summit climbs out of Climbers Bivouac. We do snowshoe activities at June Lake, all on the south side. On the circle at about 1 o'clock, the red circle is over by Cascade Peaks on the east side of Mount St. Helens. We do have a field camp over there where we base some of our other adventure programs, guided adventures. And then the one I really want to focus on for just a minute is the circle that's at about 11 o'clock, the red circle. That's where our Coldwater Ridge program center is. So if you're familiar, it used to be a Forest Service Visitor Center. In 1992 is when it was finished. Johnston Ridge opened in 1995, and the Forest Service decided that they did not need 2 visitor centers at the end of a 2-lane highway, a dead-end 2-lane highway. So that visitor center was closed in 2007. In 2011, Mount St. Helens Institute started running programs out of that building with our partnership with the forest. And then in 2022, we received a 30-year permit to be able to operate out of the building. And so I'll touch on that a little bit more later too. But I want to emphasize that really the base of our education programs is located in Cowlitz County. We really want to serve more Cowlitz County youth. We have served quite a few programs in the past, but not as much lately. But because of where our programs are, that main education center is located, it's really important to us to be able to work with more Cowlitz County folks. Next slide, please. As you know, 504 is kind of the main access route that goes up to Johnston Ridge Observatory and the Coldwater Ridge Visitor Center, now the Science and Learning Center at Coldwater. Like I said, we partner with the state parks, so we work down in Castle Rock and work really closely with the state parks there. Johnston Ridge, most people when I'm up here in Cowlitz County are like, when's Johnston Ridge gonna open again? The best information that we have is from WashDOT that says the road will be completed in fall of 2026. And then Johnston Ridge Observatory is expected at this point to open up the following season. The Forest Service did manage to get power up there, so they kind of bridged the gap that's still in the road. The road isn't completed, but they did put a temporary line up, so there is power up there, so they can condition it this winter and try and do some better maintenance on it.
I was just going to ask
Subject
that
to the
if they
elements.
got power over to it instead of let's just
Yep,
sitting there.
yep.
Yeah.
So webcams are back up. The USGS webcams are back up. Right now they're covered in snow, but we're pretty excited that they've got power back up there because that's for maintenance purposes.
Yeah.
Being able to condition that building is really important.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So Science and Learning Center, like I said, this is a very unique building. It was built to really withstand another similar explosion of Mount St. Helens. So it's it's a pretty substantial concrete mass, but it is where we base all of our education programs. And I'll talk more about our programs later. So Science and Learning Center is really where we focus on in Cowlitz County. Next slide, please. Also at the campus, right near there, we have created a field camp so folks can come up and use a campground. Right now, it's not open to the public, but we do use it for our programs and we have goals to turn it into a public campground. And I'll talk more about that later too. Next slide, please. Just want to touch on, again, what allows us to work on this federal land. We have quite a few permits with the Forest Service. We also have some state permits, just like we would for any other business. And then from Cowlitz County, we have permits to run our commercial kitchen that's inside that building. And then we have a camp permit that allows us to run our overnight youth programs. Next slide, please. Quick overview of our org chart. I don't think it's important that you know who is at our place of work because that shifts, that changes. What I really want to focus on are those 2 black squares. That first, the one on the left, our board of directors as a nonprofit. While I am an executive director of the organization, the board really guides the strategy for our organization. And so we're reliant on that volunteer force to guide our organization. And I'm really grateful for our board. We've got a wide variety of folks. I'm really excited. We haven't had anyone in Cowlitz County, and just with this recent round of recruitment, we did get someone from Cowlitz County on the board. So I'm really excited for that representation. The other one that I want to focus on here is volunteers. We have an incredible volunteer force, and our organization was really built around volunteers. That's how we started. Everyone was volunteer. We've since grown to have staff members, but volunteers are really a key part of our organization and a big part of what we do. Next, please. So what do we do? We kind of talked about facilities, where we work. What do we do? Who are these people that are standing on top of Mount St. Helens? Next slide, please. We have 4 program buckets. So volunteers, youth education, I've talked about a lot. Community education is another thing that we do. And then guided adventures is the final one, where we take folks up and take them out onto the mountain. Next, please. So that first program bucket is volunteers. We have opportunities to volunteer by providing interpretation at the state parks or for the federal visitor centers. We have opportunities to volunteer with our own programs. We recently started a Mount St. Helens trail crew that works closely with WTA and is really focused on trails in the monument. And then we also have volunteers that rove trails. And what that means is that people donate their time, they put on a red ball cap and a red volunteer t-shirt, and they just hike the trails, educating people about Mount St. Helens, helping them learn more about the eruption, about the landscape and the recovery. So if you're ever out hiking or paddling, say hi to one of our volunteers if you see them. Next, please. Just a couple numbers to show you some of that impact that our volunteers have had. Last year, we had 208 active volunteers with our organization. That doesn't count kind of those shared volunteers with the Washington Trails Association. They volunteered over 11,000 hours last year, engaged with over 54,000 people at the monument. Again, those roving volunteers really talked to a lot of people and hiked over 6,800 miles. When I looked at the numbers yesterday, about 10% of our volunteers are from Cowlitz County. Next, please. Youth education is that second program bucket. The photo that you see here is from a program we have called Geo Girls. And so we have a 1-week free science education program for middle school aged girls that runs usually in August up at the Science and Learning Center. And so they go out and do research with geoscientists. They go collect the data. At the end of the week, they do poster presentations. It's a really great opportunity to really encourage women to get into sciences. Next. Outdoor school, one of our big focuses right now is on outdoor school, and a big reason for that is because Washington State is putting a lot of emphasis on outdoor school. House Bill 2078, which was passed in April of 2022, provides programmatic funding for any school in any public school in Washington State to apply for funding and pay for outdoor school for their students. Right now, a lot of Cowlitz County students either aren't doing outdoor school, or they might be doing their own, or they often go up to CISPAS. CISPAS is really the only facility that can really carry a school that's in Southwest Washington. There's not a lot of outdoor school infrastructure here. Some schools, if they do want to do their own outdoor school, they can rent like the Girl Scout camp that's in Cowlitz County. They can try and find a location to do that. But it has been a challenge to match the infrastructure to the funding that the state has provided. So some of those schools just do day programs, but what we really advocate for is that overnight outdoor school. I'm curious if any went to outdoor school or like 6th grade camp or anything when you were a kid.
Well, back in the day, I think CISPAS is
Mhm.
where you get to go up and spend outdoor.
Mhm.
So these funds through this 2078, do they go to the schools and then they can use it for outdoor school? It doesn't go to you and you provide the.
Correct. It goes directly to the school.
So the school has to make a decision that that's what they want to do, and then they can use those funds to pass on to you
Right.
for the services.
Right. And the structure for the schools is a little bit difficult. They have to apply for the funding during a pretty short period in the spring for the next year's funds. So they need to make decisions in the spring, not knowing if they're going to get that funding. They need to reserve places, apply for funding.
Oh.
So the system is not set up well. It's
I was
great that
gonna
there's
say, that's not set up well. 'Cause
there's
they actually
great
have
funding.
to apply for funding for that specific thing. They just can't use part of their budget to do this if they deem that it's worthwhile.
Right, right. So they could use part of their own money, but the funds that the state provides really do cover most of the expense of outdoor school. And they can use that for teachers, they can use that for transportation, they can use that to pay for the overnight facilities. They could use it for someone like us who does both the facilities and the education pieces. So.
Yeah, the Kalama School District is actually in the process of developing a ropes course and facility up above their football field
Mhm.
to utilize this program.
Yeah.
It's actually, because the funding is available in our state, is one of the reasons why I was going around talking to people about my nonprofit for kids. I was going to the schools and talking to them about having outdoor leadership classes and being able to do that. And I was actually going to do it in Battleground, but then I got roped into this thing called a campaign, and here we are now. So
Life happens,
yeah.
yes. Yes, yeah. But something that I really believe in outdoor school, even, I mean, just personally, is just that impact that it has on kids. So often they go day to day in the classroom, they go through the lessons, they sit and they do their assignments. But it's one of these core memories when kids get outside. It's something that's different. It changes the dynamics for students a lot of times. Those kids who have a hard time sitting still, who might be the disruptor in class, like you get them outside at outdoor school, and it provides a different opportunity for them to really take the lead in a class. So it can change that perspective for kids. It's just such a great opportunity. And that's on, all those other benefits are on top of that hands-on science education that they can get.
So the institute itself doesn't have the ability to apply for these
Correct,
funds,
correct.
which almost feels a little bit of a shame, because I'm sure if you built it, you'd have schools that would bring their kids up there.
Yeah, that
But
was,
now you're asking the school to make a decision between this, and this, and yeah, okay.
Right. And I appreciate that the funding gives schools that choice. They can really build a program based on what their needs are. I do know that it's a challenge for teachers. There's some districts who are wanting to do outdoor school are like, teachers, we need you to figure out how we do this. Can you create the curriculum on top of what you're already doing? Can you take the kids out? And I know that's a challenge for teachers. Not all teachers are like gung ho and like, yeah, I want to be outside. So the Institute, and I know CISPIS is making some changes to how they do things too, where they are providing some education time, not just providing a facility. So looking at that hybrid approach is really helpful.
I still think if you were able to apply and you had it and you said, okay, we got outdoor school, it's going to run from this and this, and this is what you can do, that you'll have people lined up to take advantage.
Yeah.
It's hard for me not to believe that.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
yeah. I was just going to say that going through the schools, it does create some obstacles for people who are trying to implement programs like that. In fact, you've heard me say before, Rick, that when we had applied for money to do this very thing right here, the problem for us was that the state said it has to be this way, and they outlined, and I'm like, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so that was my problem with it. And so we went to go to the schools to do it. And we did work with them to create and to come up with a program that was going to meet the needs of the kids that they had. And so there's plus and minuses to both. But I do like this idea, and it's here, it's in Washington. So, and the schools, I believe they have to comply with so many hours a year, I believe, in outdoor school. They have a deadline that they have to meet that says you have to have some program ready to go that you're doing with so many hours of outdoor school.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the mandate is for schools at this point, but yeah. Yeah. So one of the challenges that we have with outdoor school is our capacity. So Rick, I know you've been up to our facility, and I'm trying to remember what the setup was when you were up there. Right now, if we want to offer overnight outdoor school to kids, it's a little bit night in the museum-ish. And so we have 27 bunk beds set up inside the old visitor center in 2 different rooms so we can separate genders. But we are really limited on capacity to 1 classroom. Which is really why one reason we can't offer overnight outdoor education to school districts in Cowlitz County. Even Toutle has 2 classrooms at each grade band. And so we just can't offer outdoor overnight education to schools unless we grow. And we will get to that later. That's one way that I'm looking forward to your support. But it's such an important pivotal moment for these kids, especially in 5th and 6th grade, which is what this funding is for. It's just such a great time to get these kids outside and really build that confidence that they can have. Next slide, please. So the way we approach outdoor school is we have Volcano Outdoor School. We do day programs and overnight residential trips. Last year we provided over $100,000 in financial assistance for both public and private schools to be able to attend. We prioritize those low-income schools who would have a hard time coming to us otherwise. And even that the state funding because they also have to use it for transportation and teacher time and substitutes, that $150 a night that the state gives doesn't cover all of our education time. So we do subsidize that. So last year we did have schools that were able to come to outdoor school for free. And that's one of the reasons that we do a lot of fundraising. So our 2024 impact, we had over 1,800 youth come attend outdoor school at Mount St. Helens. Again, you can see that overnight number is pretty small because we could really only serve a classroom at a time. But we did have 1,400 students come up for the day and participate with us. Next, please. I already mentioned Geo Girls, a free 5-day overnight camp for middle school girls. It's fully subsidized. It's really fun. This is our 10th year of doing Geo Girls, and we've had some of our early alumni go into the geosciences. They're currently working on graduate degrees in geosciences, which is really exciting to see that we've been able to be a part of their story in that. Next, please. Another way we do youth education is through a virtual program. As many people had to pivot during COVID, we did as well. So we created virtual field trips. And so we still do field trips. I think we've got a place in Tennessee that comes to us every year and does a virtual field trip about Mount St. Helens. Not quite the same as being out there in person, but we do have this as an option for folks who may not be able to get their classes up. Next. Another education program we do is Family Adventure Camp. Again, not all the schools are able to come up, so over the summer we offer a Family Adventure Camp where families can come and stay in our field camp, and we offer this on a sliding scale so that families of all income levels can afford it. Next. Folks can also just rent the Science and Learning Center. We have some university groups that they're like, yeah, your youth education, we're a little bit above that, but we really want to come learn at Mount St. Helens, come rent your building. And so we do get some rentals for folks that come up and stay the overnight, use our kitchen, and use the laboratory of Mount St. Helens. Next. Wanted to check in just for a moment. I mentioned how we're not serving as many Cowlitz schools as we would like to, but we do serve some. So you'll see the tribal programs that are on there. Castle Rock schools come to us. Parks and Rec came to us, and then a couple of elementary schools. And again, I'm hoping that as we expand our operations at Coldwater Ridge, that we'll be able to serve more Cowlitz students. Next.
You also serve some in Clark too, right?
We serve quite a few Clark schools. Yeah, Clark, Lewis County, we get some folks that come down from the Seattle-Tacoma area as well. Yeah. Third bucket of programming. So we had volunteering, we had youth education. Third bucket is community education and events. Next, please. Tonight, we have an event down in Vancouver that I'm headed to called Views and Brews. If you've ever heard of Science on Tap, it's a very similar program. We gather together at a brewery or a restaurant and have some sort of presenter. Tonight's his name is Rand Schenk, and he wrote a book called, oh, I should know this. I lost it. But it's a book about forestry, and it uses the Gifford Pinchot as the model, talking about the history of forestry and the Forest Service. It's a really interesting book, so we're excited to have him speak. We're looking forward to having Craig Romano, who is an author of a lot of local trail books. He'll be on deck in the next couple months. So fun opportunity to get into the community and do some education. Next. We also do a volcano naturalist program. Are you familiar with Master Gardener program?
Yeah. What's that?
The Master Gardener program?
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is similar, but it's for volcano education. And so it's a 12-week certification course. We just kicked off this year's last night. And so we take a group of 50 to 60 people, and they learn about all these different aspects of Mount St. Helens, cultural, geologic, ecology, the recovery, how the eruption was covered in the media, all sorts of different things about Mount St. Helens. It includes 3 field trips. And then these people go out into the world really knowledgeable about all things Mount St. Helens. Next. We also do a couple other camps that really aren't geared toward families, but are open to families. Base Camp and our Sky and Star Party are summer events that we host where people can stay up overnight, either in our campground or in the building during the summer, and it's just a good time. Next. So that fourth program bucket is guided adventures. These are where we're going to travel all over Mount St. Helens and the monument to really help people get an in-depth educational experience on the mountain. These are more adult focused. Next slide, please. So last year we offered 54 trips, everything from a guided summit tour with a geologist. We have geologists come so they can really do an in-depth explanation of what's going on, what you're seeing. We also have the opportunity through the Forest Service permit to take folks into the crater up to the toe of the glacier, which is a unique experience not many people get to do. We have an eruption hike where people hike. We used to hike from Johnston Ridge and out. Now we hike from the Hummocks Trail. Again, these are all educationally focused guided adventures. We have people from all over the world that come to our area to be able to participate in these programs. Next, please. Okay. Any questions about who we are and what we do? That was a lot. We do a lot. For having 8 full-time staff members,
Yeah.
we have a really broad impact on Mount St. Helens. We touch a lot of the visitors that come to Mount St. Helens. So what's the future of Mount St. Helens Institute? Next, please. So since the eruption, we've talked a little bit about that restricted access. As you know, there's been some infrastructure development for overnight accommodations. Eco Park is on the way up there. There's obviously hotels in Longview and Castle Rock. But inside the monument, unlike other places like Mount Rainier and Mount Hood, there's no place to stay inside the monument. People feel less connected to the landscape when all you can do is go for the day. In fact, Mount St. Helens is one of the few dark sky areas in the area because of the city lights. So going up and being able to experience the stars over Mount St. Helens is a really incredible experience that right now you have to backpack in to be able to really do. The Forest Service, when they built these visitor centers, planned for 2 million visitors a year. That's why there's an 8-acre parking lot at our building. And that's really shifted over time. Last year, there were less than 100,000 visitors to the Johnston Ridge area. And part of that is because Johnston Ridge is closed. But part of it is because there hasn't been a lot of investment in the infrastructure in the region, and the Forest Service doesn't do a lot of marketing. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth, a lot of opportunity to kind of reinvigorate the things that are going on there. And there's a new story, like you said, Rick, like there's this incredible story about the regrowth that has happened at Mount St. Helens. We expected it to still be a barren landscape at this point 45 years ago. But there's this great story that really reflects the human experience of resilience and growth and how we can overcome challenges. And there's a story to tell there. Next slide, please. We have this great opportunity in 5 years at the 50th anniversary to really think about how we might want to use Mount St. Helens to reinvigorate tourism. What are the stories we can tell? What are the things we can do? How can we bring people here and take advantage of this event that's going to happen? So something that we've learned in talking to state tourism folks is that there's kind of a rule of thumb for rural tourism, and that's that you need 3 places to stay, 3 places to eat, and 3 things to do. We've got the things to do covered, right? Mount St. Helens has hiking, has kayaking. There's all sorts of stuff to do around Cowlitz County, but there aren't as many places to stay up at Mount St. Helens. And so adding to the infrastructure of the gateway, in the gateway for Mount St. Helens would really encourage more visitors. So next slide, please. Mount St. Helens Institute has a vision for developing infrastructure at Coldwater Ridge. We've created a master plan to build overnight infrastructure at Mount St. Helens. The really core purpose of that is so that we can offer additional outdoor education. But the side benefit is that when we're not doing outdoor education in the winter or in the summer when kids aren't in school, we have the opportunity to really help bring folks out to Mount St. Helens, bring them through Cowlitz County, and help lift that tourism economy here. Next slide, please. So this development includes a lot of different things, but we've phased it to really focus on the things that we feel will be most helpful for us and for the community. And so that first phase that we're looking at is expanding outdoor school accommodations and staff housing. If we're serving 120 kids, the 3 duplexes that we share with the Forest Service aren't going to be enough, so we do need to put in some staff housing. We're looking at supplying 120 beds so that we can serve 4 classrooms at a time rather than the one that we can do now. We're also looking at phase 2, which is doing a small public campground up there and trail improvements. Right now, there are quite a few trails up there, but if you want to do any kind of loop, you've got to hike along the highway. And so we're working with the Forest Service on doing some improved trail design and building some of those connections and increasing safety out there. The third phase of this development is to improve the Coldwater Ridge Visitor Center. I don't know how much you've heard, but there's some issues with the building. Right now, the septic system is out. It can't heat the building to more than 45 degrees on those cold days in the winter. It doesn't do AC in the summer very well. The roof leaks, and it has since the building was built. And the fire alarm system has been out for a while. So this building has some major issues with it. And we are working with our federal representatives to try and get some additional funding for it. So remodeling that building, making it more appropriate for its current use so that it can be more multi-purpose is also part of this project. And then we also want to do some other pieces, a welcome building to improve food service up there. The original master plan had lodges. We'll talk a little bit about how we want to do phase one so that it's more affordable for us. We don't have to fundraise as much. Lodges are going to be $5 to $6 million to be able to house 120 kids, and we think we can do it for like 2 to 3 million with that staff housing. So trying to decrease that barrier to entry. Next slide, please. So this is all fine and good for the Institute, but what about Cowlitz County, right? It's going to be great to have more additional students up there. I feel like it's really important to be able to bring Cowlitz County kids up to Mount St. Helens. We didn't serve Toutle schools this year, but in the past we've brought Toutle kids up there. They're like, wow, I've never been to Mount St. Helens, which is shocking to me. So it feels really important to be able to serve more kids so we can really connect Cowlitz County kids, Clark County kids to the landscape that they're around. By connecting kids to the landscape, we build stronger community. We want people to feel connected to the place where they live. So we also, with this development up at Mount St. Helens, really hoping to improve the visitor experience. It's hard when there's not food up there. It's hard when you have to walk along the highway or cross the highway if you want to hike an additional trail and there's no parking in the other lot. So we also want to offer kayak rentals. Again, if folks don't have a kayak, how great would it be to be able to rent a kayak up there? So improving that visitor experience, providing more opportunities for visitors who are coming through Cowlitz County. And then the economic impact piece is really important as well. Once this development is finished, we expect a $5 to $10 million increased regional spending per year, quite a bit of state and local taxes paid, that waterfall of jobs that's created with those, both for our organization and then for increased people coming through, and then those construction jobs that would be created while we do construction. Next slide, please. So where are we at? This has been a project that's been in process for quite a while. Our former executive director, Ray Yerkowitz, who I think you're familiar with, Rick, he did a lot of the groundwork to be able to get us to where we are today. And the thing I mentioned earlier with that red circle is getting those permits from the Forest Service. That's a huge deal. To be able to get loans, to be able to get funding, we really need to show that we have control of the space. So those 30-year permits from the Forest Service are vital for us to be able to make progress. And those were issued in 2022. Where we're at right now, we are wrapping up design on the campground. We got a state grant to be able to do the design work for the campground and additional trails. So that will be done by June. We have concept designs for student housing and the master plan. And then we're continuing to seek funding for the building, for the campground, and then also for outdoor school. With our priority really focused on outdoor school, we feel that that's what will give us the best impact for both education and for folks coming to Cowlitz County. Next slide, please. We've talked to a lot of folks. There's broad support for this. The previous board of the Cowlitz County Commissioners was supportive of our initiative here. We have talked to the governor's office. The Forest Service is supportive of this. Lots of educational organizations as well. So there really is broad support for this initiative that we're doing. Next, please.
You got a request into the state again this year?
Oh, I am working on it right now. The submittal period isn't open, but we are going to be making a state capital request. Yep.
It sounds like you're working with the feds too on.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I have a
Forest
meeting with
Service
Senator
and money
Murray's
to help
office
with that.
tomorrow, so, yep. And we're really trying to target that funding toward the specific piece, right? I can't fundraise to repair this building. It's owned by the federal government. It's their responsibility to do it.
Right.
But I can advocate. So funds for that aren't going to come from the state. Like I said, I'm meeting with Senator Murray's office tomorrow. I don't know what the funding situation is going to look like with this administration. It's been a challenge already to get funding for this building. But we're certainly going to advocate for it.
On the previous slide, it says broad support. What exactly constitutes support? Financial contribution? There's a lot of people listed on there that I'm wondering, are they contributing financially, or how did we come up with that list?
Great question. Thank you. Could you please go back to the previous slide? It really depends on which organization we're talking about. Forest Service, again, that support has been shown through our partnership, through agreements. They do provide some funding for us. For example, with this campground design that we have that we're working on right now, because it's on federal land, it has to go through a NEPA process. That means time on the Forest Service. That means money for the Forest Service. So they have put forth in their partnership time, energy, effort, and that financial contribution through that time. Outdoor Schools Washington, it's an alliance of folks, so they're not going to be providing any financial support, but they're supporting us with advocacy, with financial requests from the state, letters of support, things like that. Most of the groups on here are going to be that letter of support, that showing that says, we want this to happen.
We would, you know what, I would, of course, it'd take the three of us decide we wanted to do this, but I think that'd probably be okay. And when any of us take the time and travel back to DC, I'll probably be back in May, and I think my fellow commissioners will pick a date at some point in time. I don't think we would have any issue when we're talking with people that we support some of the requests that they see coming through to help the Forest Service.
Thank you.
There. So I would maybe whatever stuff you give back to our federal people, if we have a copy of it, I think we'd probably be okay sharing that same information as we talk.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is I'm assuming you're coming to us for more than just a letter of support.
And advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, we have gotten broad support from our federal legislators, from Senator Murray, Senator Cantwell, and Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. Last year, so we did put in a CDS, an earmark request. It did not get through committee, but the fact that it was even put in, Senator Cantwell put it in for us, that shows us that we do have support from her. Senator Murray was up at the Science and Learning Center last January. Again, very supportive of us, of this. This would be a great thing for her to kind of, you know,
Right.
to leave on as being like, look at this success story for really investing in rural Cowlitz County. So,
Well, I
next.
think you're right. They're going to have to make a decision to take care of some of the deficiencies you're starting to see in the building, because
Right.
you don't own it. We don't
Right.
own it. They're the ones that own it.
Right. And those
Yeah.
pieces really are going to have to be taken care of in order for our project to be successful. Because again, I can fundraise for outdoor school. I could probably fundraise for a campground. It's going to be really hard for me to fundraise for an HVAC system in a federal building.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they should take care of their infrastructure. Having an organization like ours use it is really a better option for them than mothballing it. It's going to cost them so much to tear it down if it doesn't get used. So it's really a win-win. It's just a matter of, you know, how can we get this building back up to the operational status that it needs to have?
And I almost hate to put it this way, but the longer it takes them to where they figure they can get to Johnson Ridge, the more apt they are to help you with this building. So if they start paving over and getting the job, you might want to go out in the middle of the night and tear that up. I didn't say that.
No, we have great relationships with the Forest Service. They've been super appreciative because really the building that they are using as their visitor center is our building to use. That's what the permit says. It doesn't say, and by the way, the Forest Service can come back and use it whenever they want. It really is that partnership of like, you're in a hard place. You can't access the building you would otherwise. So let's figure out how to make this work and we'll share. Next slide, please. So like you mentioned, I'm not here to ask you for money, but I would appreciate support. Something that we've heard from our state legislators is, where's your local support? Do the Cowlitz County Commissioners support this project? And because of that shift at the beginning of the year, right now I can't say, yeah, they're on board. But so that's one way that we would like the support of the Cowlitz County Commissioners. So this kind of logical argument here is that we would like to make a request to the state for the expansion of our outdoor school. This request from the state, in addition to the fundraising that I'm going to be doing, completes the whole outdoor school expansion. It means that if we get this state funding, we can create the infrastructure, we can build, and we can open in 2 years to be able to serve 4 to 5 times the number of students that we serve now. And without that investment from the state, it's going to be really, really difficult. I have some kind of bigger donors where I would be able to make some requests. But again, for this bigger campus project, I know that there's going to be pieces, there's going to be $500,000 of furniture, fixtures, and equipment I need to put into this outdoor school. So I'm going to need to be able to use those donors for some of those pieces that I can't have the state pay for. And again, the state would really like to see that local support. Again, you saw that list. We work really hard to be in the community and talk with people who are here and care about Cowlitz County. But it's those elected officials that they really want to say, like, yeah, is this something that they want to see or not really? Next slide, please. So a couple ways that you can help. Rick, I really appreciate that suggestion of out in DC, just mentioning our project, making sure that they know that this is something that you care about. Another thing we're doing right now, we have a bill in both the Senate and the House for Mount St. Helens license plate. I'd love to see that on all the cars in Clark and Cowlitz County. But that's got to get out of the Transportation Committee. So advocating for that would be another way that you could help. And the proceeds from that license plate do go to the Mount St. Helens Institute. So yeah, those are the 3 things. So state advocacy for our budget request, our capital budget request, support for the license plate, and then federal support advocating for the monument in general and funding to it. Right now, the monument is not a line item in the Forest Service budget, so it shares all of its funding with all of the other districts. So it's just a challenge to invest in this infrastructure. Next slide, please. So a couple of questions I thought you might have. Actually, could you go back to the previous one before I show you my questions? What are some of the questions that you have about this? Not just advocacy, but kind of our project in general.
I really don't have any questions. I think you've done a great job of explaining your vision and what it is that you guys are doing and what you want to do. And I personally am in support of it and I like it.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. We'd love to have you call your local legislator and voice support.
Well, I know our legislators, because I've seen them up at the deal, they support a lot of what you're doing up there. So I know you have their support. And when Commissioner Farrell's back, I'll make a point that we formally decide if we want to. I don't think you're going to have any trouble, but we'll formally make that decision and help you with that if we can.
Thank you. We can skip the FAQ slide if you don't have any questions, but I do want to touch on a couple of things. So $3 million, that's a big price tag. You know, we know the state budget, they're in a deficit for the next biennium. Capital budget is separate from the operating budget, but $3 million is a big request. And so for us, it's not just the investment in the Institute, but really it's that regional investment. Of the nights that we'll have up there, probably a quarter of the time will be for outdoor school just because of the season where we're able to operate. The county expects to plow the roads over the winter, or sorry, not the county. The state expects to plow the roads over the winter, but schools aren't going to come in December. Just there's uncertainty about the roads and it's in between holidays. January, they tend not to come because it's in the semester thing. So just timing with the schools, they won't be using the facility all the time. So we do want to offer that up and really increase those recreational opportunities that are at Mount St. Helens, especially during the winter. Another
Does the
go ahead.
state plow up there that far?
The state has committed to plow 7 days a week at this point.
So, they would do it
That is,
if you had, and then people would have access if they wanted access to it.
yes. Yes, the state has told us that they're plowing 7 days a week. I don't go up there 7 days a week, so I can't confirm that. Obviously, if there's a need
That's probably
lowered,
up to your gate.
that would be up to the gate. I believe they plow down to Coldwater Lake as well, because I have seen people kayaking down there. So it should be to the gate that goes to Johnston Ridge Observatory.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah. So the state has committed to continuing to plow 7 days a week, unless there's a major snowstorm down below, in which case those resources need to go elsewhere, but they are plowing 7 days a week is my understanding. So timeline for this project, because of the way that we're looking at approaching this outdoor school, the outdoor school accommodations, we're looking at doing modular cabins, which means they can be built offsite and brought in. And so we can do all the site work over one summer, then rather than having to take a couple years to build on site, we should be able to just bring those in and get the construction done pretty quickly. So I would expect that within 2 years of funding, we would be able to have that project complete. Why doesn't the Forest Service do it? For outdoor school, it's not their prerogative. But for the campground, they've had 45 years to put a campground in the monument and they haven't done it yet. There's been conversations about it. There's been rough plans made. They haven't done it. So the Institute is taking it upon ourselves to be like, hey, let's invest in this place. Let's bring people out here. Let's allow them to spend the night. Let's make this a recreational opportunity for folks. And then will it pay off? As I showed earlier, that economic impact study that we did shows that it will pay off, that it will bring tax revenue, it'll bring job creation, and then those intangible benefits for the students are harder to quantify. But next slide, please. Another opportunity for questions?
I think you explained things pretty well. And
I talked a lot, I apologize.
Oh,
Oh, we have one more slide. So before we go to that last slide, I do want to say thank you for your time today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being engaged, and thank you for your service to the community. It's not always easy to be in a commissioner position, but I appreciate you being here and appreciate your time today. Thank you. So my last slide is what's your Mount St. Helens
Oh.
story?
yeah. You know, when you grow up in the Northwest, you grow up around the mountains and you grow up close to the ocean. So you kind of take some of that stuff for granted. So when I think of Mount St. Helens, it was just I was living in Yakima, living and working in Yakima, but that weekend I happened to be in Vancouver. And just the power and the awesomeness of that going. See, when I thought of volcanoes, what I always saw was Hawaii. So, and I can remember Dixie Lee Ray saying, well, you guys don't understand the power that this thing can have. And she had a blast zone, and there was such outcry that they narrowed that blast zone down. But if it would have happened on a work day, they would have found out she was right, because a lot of people would not be around today, including my father-in-law, that were up there doing logging activities. So it's just watching that and seeing the power come down the rivers and everything it did, it just forever sticks in my mind. And to tell me that 40 years later, I'm still dealing with stuff of that, I would have never guessed it. But
Sediment management.
And it doesn't matter where I travel. When people ask, where you live, I say I live by Mount St. Helens, and everybody knows, So I think there's still a lot of potential for this thing, but I think some of the things you talk about have to happen to make that come true.
Agreed.
Yeah. So that's what I think about when I think about of the mountain.
Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing.
For me, I was a wee toddler when that mountain blew, but
Quit rubbing it in.
my oldest son drew a mud flow elk tag. And so we got to go down onto the mud flow to elk hunt. And it was really neat to get to see the mountain from that angle. And he ended up shooting a bull, opening day. We had to sleep down. They were gonna sleep down on the river, on the flow. I didn't think that was a good idea, so we hiked all the way up to the observatory up the valley to get out. And then we went back in the next day. And what's funny, when you were showing your slides, the group of people that were given the hiking down the trails, we ran into them on the way out as we were packing the elk out, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And apparently they didn't know that it was legal to do so. I think it was the second year that they had opened that. And we had a conversation with them about, yeah, this is legit. We're, you need to stay on the trail. And we had all the conversations that they were, about not stepping on flowers and all sorts of fun stuff. But that was a pretty amazing experience to get to be a part of the mountain from that aspect, and to be in nature and hiking in the dark at 1 a.m. to get out of it. So yeah, that's my Mount St. Helens story. And my other son drew an elk tag that he could hunt around the mountain. And we went up there, and we were really surprised to see all the wildlife that is, bears, elk, deer, wolves, coyotes, you name it, they've got it up there, and it was pretty cool to see all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really neat to see how, like, not just the plants are coming back, but
Yeah.
so many elk.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a cougar sighting in our campground 2 weeks before our school program started last year. I'm like, no, please move on. We don't need that. But yeah, it's so exciting to know that it's coming back like that.
Yeah.
Boy, and during that time, when it was acting up and doing all those things, how do you ever forget Harry Truman? That guy became, national news, this curmudgeon of an old guy
Yeah.
saying, "I'm not going anywhere." Well, he's right. He hasn't gone anywhere. He's still there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's part of that cultural story, part of this story of Mount St. Helens that really does knit us together. So,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here.
Lisa.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys are next. Emily, I used to like.
Thank you, Alyssa.
It is one of the things I said, not everybody gets to see a volcano blow, and I was watching that thing, and it was pretty amazing. And you will send some stuff, Kelly, we can. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks.
Well, Emily, whoever you contacted, it worked. Awesome.
So let me ask real quick. I'm not exactly sure what we're going over. Is anything we're going over sensitive to the nature that it should be not public? It should be executive session?
Yes, good afternoon, Jason Lorraine with Legal. I'm here with David Berger. I think much of what we're going to be going over is probably subject to executive session.
Okay. So what would you classify it under?
Primarily potential litigation with additional personnel issue.
Any idea on timeframe, Jason?
Thank you for asking. I believe David and I both agree that an initial 20 minutes would be necessary.
Okay.
And if we need additional time, we can request that.
So then that's what I think we should do, adjourn to executive session, potential litigation, 20 minutes. We'll start there, okay?
The board is extending the executive session an additional 15 minutes until 4:05. The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 4:10.
Okay, back for executive session, no decisions rendered. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. We will adjourn.